Chapter 1: The Girl. Nobody expected every empire begins somewhere. For some, it begins with an army. For others, it begins with money. But one of the most successful entertainment empires in modern history began with something much smaller. A teenage girl, a notebook, and a dream that almost nobody believed would change the world. Today, Taylor Swift is one of the most recognizable names on the planet. She has sold millions of records, filled stadiums across continents, broken industry records once thought untouchable, built a fan community unlike anything the music business has ever seen, and transformed herself from a country singer into a global cultural phenomenon. But this story is not about who Taylor Swift became. This is about how she got there, because if you look closely enough, you'll discover that her rise was not simply the result of luck. It was the result of decisions, risks, sacrifices, and a strategy that was quietly taking shape long before the world noticed her name. To understand the phenomenon, we have to go back. Back before the sold-out tours, back before the awards, back before the headlines, back to a time when nobody knew who she was. Back to a small town in Pennsylvania. At first glance, there was nothing extraordinary about it. No giant recording studios, no celebrity connections, no obvious pathway to superstardom, just another American town where dreams often remained dreams. Yet inside one household, something unusual was happening. A young girl was becoming obsessed with stories, not just reading them, writing them, creating them. While many children were focused on ordinary childhood interests, Taylor seemed fascinated by words, the way they could make people feel, the way they could tell a story, the way they could turn ordinary moments into something unforgettable. Most people saw a hobby, few saw the beginning of a career, but even then, there were signs. The signs were small, easy to overlook, yet they were there. Because long before Taylor Swift became known as a performer, she was becoming something else, a storyteller, and that would eventually become her greatest weapon. Years later, millions of fans would sing her lyrics from memory, but at the time, she was simply a young girl trying to make sense of the world through words. There was just one problem. The music industry wasn't waiting for her. In fact, it barely knew she existed, and breaking into that world was nearly impossible. Every year, thousands of hopeful artists chased the same dream. Most failed. Many gave up. Only a tiny fraction ever reached an audience. The odds were overwhelming. Yet, Taylor's interest in music continued to grow. Not because success was guaranteed, but because she couldn't seem to ignore it. Some dreams whisper, others refuse to stay silent. This one refused to stay silent. As time passed, it became clear that this wasn't a temporary phase. This wasn't something she would simply outgrow. The dream was getting stronger, bigger, more demanding, and eventually, it forced a difficult question. How far was she willing to go? Because dreams are easy when they cost nothing. The real test comes when sacrifice enters the equation. For Taylor and her family, that moment was approaching, fast. The center of country music wasn't in Pennsylvania. It was hundreds of miles away, in Nashville, Tennessee. For aspiring artists, Nashville represented opportunity, possibility, chance. But it also represented risk. Moving toward a dream meant moving away from certainty. And certainty is something most people never willingly abandon. Yet, the family made a decision that would alter the course of their lives forever. They chose to take the dream seriously, not someday, not eventually. Now it was a gamble, a huge gamble. There were no guarantees, no promises, no roadmap, only hope and belief. The kind of belief that causes people to leave comfort behind and step into the unknown. Few people noticed the decision at the time. After all, families relocate every day. Teenagers chase dreams every day. Nothing about it seemed historic. Yet history often looks ordinary in the moment. Only later do people realize they were witnessing the beginning of something extraordinary. The move brought Taylor closer to the music industry, closer to opportunity, closer to the people who could potentially open doors. But getting close to the dream was not the same as achieving it. In fact, the hardest part was just beginning, because Nashville was filled with talented people, people who could sing, people who could write, people who wanted success just as badly. And somewhere among thousands of hopeful artists stood a teenage girl trying to convince the industry that she was different, trying to convince them she belonged, trying to convince them to take a chance on her. Most would not. Many would say no, some would barely listen. And yet, with every rejection, something unexpected happened. She kept going. The question wasn't whether obstacles existed. The question was why they didn't stop her. Because most people quit after enough disappointment. Most people walk away when the odds become uncomfortable. Most people abandon the dream. Taylor didn't, and that persistence would soon place her in front of an opportunity capable of changing everything. An opportunity that could launch her career or end it before it truly began. The girl nobody expected was about to place the biggest bet of her life, and the music industry had no idea what was coming next. Chapter 2. The Gamble. The music industry is full of talented people. That's the uncomfortable truth. Every year, thousands of singers arrive with big dreams. Thousands believe they have what it takes. Thousands imagine themselves becoming stars. Most never do. Not because they lack talent, but because talent alone is rarely enough. And as Taylor Swift entered Nashville, she was about to discover that reality for herself. The city was filled with dreamers. Every coffee shop, every recording studio, every stage, every street corner, someone was chasing the exact same goal: to be discovered, to be noticed, to be remembered. For a teenager trying to break into the business, the competition was overwhelming. There were older artists, more experienced artists, more connected artists with powerful voices, artists with industry relationships, artists who appeared to have every advantage. On paper, Taylor should have been easy to overlook, and in many cases, doors did not magically swing open. Record executives did not instantly recognize a future superstar. Success did not arrive overnight. Instead, there were meetings, auditions, conversations, introductions, the slow and often frustrating process of trying to convince strangers to believe in a dream. Most people only see the breakthrough. They rarely see the years spent chasing it, yet something unusual was happening. While many aspiring artists focused primarily on singing, Taylor was developing another skill, a skill that would eventually separate her from thousands of competitors, writing songs, stories, experiences, emotions. She wasn't simply performing music, she was creating it, and that distinction mattered, because the music industry can always find another singer. Finding a storyteller is much harder. As Taylor continued writing, something began to emerge, a voice, not her singing voice, her creative voice, a way of communicating that felt personal, specific, authentic. Listeners didn't feel as though they were hearing generic songs. They felt as though they were hearing real experiences, real emotions, real moments, and people connect with what feels real. Even before the world knew her name, she was learning one of the most valuable lessons in entertainment. People may admire perfection, but they remember authenticity. Still, Authenticity alone wasn't enough. A breakthrough was needed, an opportunity, a chance, and eventually, that opportunity appeared. But like many opportunities, it arrived disguised as risk. The music business was changing. The traditional pathways to success were becoming less predictable. New companies were emerging. New ideas were emerging. New possibilities were emerging. One of those possibilities came in the form of a young record label. Unlike the established giants, this company didn't have decades of history. It didn't have unlimited resources. It didn't have the security of a proven track record. Choosing it was not the safe option. It was the uncertain option, the gamble. For most people, uncertainty feels dangerous. The safer choice is usually the established choice, the proven choice, the comfortable choice. But throughout history, some of the biggest success stories begin when someone chooses uncertainty over comfort. Taylor faced exactly that decision. The established path offered security. The new path offered possibility, and possibility won. It was a bold move, a risky move that could have gone terribly wrong. Had things unfolded differently, few people would remember it today, but history has a strange way of rewarding certain risks, especially when preparation meets opportunity. The partnership began. The work intensified. Songs were written, plans were formed, strategies developed. The foundation was being laid, yet outside a small circle of industry insiders, almost nobody noticed. The future superstar was still unknown, still unproven, still waiting. Then something happened that would change everything. A song, then another, then another. The audience began to grow, slowly at first, then faster. The industry started paying attention, or fans started paying attention. People who had never heard her name before were suddenly hearing it everywhere. And beneath the growing success, a pattern was beginning to emerge. This wasn't luck. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a one-time moment. There was a formula developing, a formula built around storytelling, connection, and an understanding of audiences that many artists never fully master. The gamble was starting to pay off, but success introduced a new challenge, because once the world notices you, the rules change, the expectations grow, the pressure multiplies, the scrutiny begins. And for Taylor Swift, the next chapter would reveal the secret weapon that transformed a promising young artist into a phenomenon. A weapon more powerful than fame, more powerful than marketing, and more powerful than talent alone. The weapon was her ability to turn ordinary experiences into stories millions of people felt belonged to them, and that ability was about to change everything. Chapter 3. The secret weapon. Every superstar has something that separates them from everyone else. For some, it's a voice. For others, it's charisma. For others, it's timing. But as Taylor Swift's career began to gain momentum, a question quietly emerged. What exactly was making her different? Why was she connecting with audiences in a way so many others could not? The answer wasn't obvious, at least not at first, because if you looked across the music industry, there was no shortage of talented singers, no shortage of beautiful performers, no shortage of ambitious artists. The industry was overflowing with talent, and yet somehow Taylor Swift was beginning to stand out, not because she was the loudest voice in the room, but because she was speaking a language millions understood. The language of stories. This was her secret weapon. Long before she became a global icon, Taylor had been studying something many artists overlooked: people, their emotions, their relationships, their fears, their heartbreaks, their hopes. While others focused on creating songs, Taylor was creating experiences, moments people could recognize, moments people could remember, moments people could see themselves inside. That distinction changed everything, because listeners weren't just hearing music, they were hearing pieces of their own lives. A first crush, a broken friendship, a difficult goodbye, a dream that felt impossible, an emotion they had never been able to describe. Suddenly, someone else was describing it for them, and when people feel understood, they pay attention. The connection becomes personal. The audience stops feeling like an audience. They become participants. Without realizing it, Taylor was building something much larger than a fan base. She was building a relationship, one song at a time, one story at a time, one listener at a time. Most artists dream of having fans. Taylor was creating believers, and believers stay. That became increasingly clear as her audience expanded. The numbers grew, the songs climbed, the attention intensified, but perhaps the most remarkable thing wasn't the growth itself. It was the loyalty. People weren't simply consuming her music. They were investing in her journey, celebrating her victories, feeling her disappointments, following her story as if it were their own. This was unusual, extremely unusual, because audiences are often unpredictable. Today's favorite artist can become tomorrow's forgotten name. Success in entertainment is notoriously fragile. One mistake, one failed project, one shift in public taste, and everything can change. Yet Taylor seemed to be creating something more durable, a connection rooted in trust. People trusted her stories, people trusted her voice, people trusted that when she released something new, it would feel genuine. That trust became one of the most valuable assets of her career, and it couldn't be purchased. It couldn't be manufactured. It had to be earned. Years later, industry experts would analyze marketing strategies, album sales, tour numbers, business decisions, all important. But before any of those things existed, there was trust, and trust is powerful. Powerful enough to transform listeners into lifelong supporters. As her popularity increased, opportunities multiplied. Television appearances, interviews, award shows, magazine covers. The spotlight was growing brighter, and with every new achievement, expectations grew alongside it. Success has a strange effect. The moment people believe in you, they begin expecting more from you. More success, more hits, more growth, more proof that you deserve the attention. What once felt exciting can suddenly become pressure, and pressure has broken many promising careers. The music industry is filled with stories of artists who rose quickly and disappeared just as fast. Some couldn't handle the attention, others couldn't handle the expectations, others simply ran out of momentum. The higher they climbed, the harder it became to stay there. Taylor was now entering that dangerous territory, the territory where potential must become reality, the territory where every decision matters, the territory where the world begins watching closely, critically, constantly, and that world can be unforgiving. The higher her profile grew, the more people formed opinions. Some admired her, some doubted her, some supported her. Some questioned whether the success would last. The criticism grew louder. The praise grew louder. Everything became louder. This is the hidden cost of fame. People often dream about recognition. Few think about what recognition actually brings, because attention is not always positive. Sometimes attention becomes pressure. Sometimes attention becomes judgment. Sometimes attention becomes scrutiny. And Taylor Swift was about to discover all three. The next phase of her journey would test her in ways success never could, not because she lacked talent, not because she lacked determination, but because the spotlight that helped build her career was about to become a microscope. Every decision examined, every mistake amplified, every controversy magnified. The world was no longer simply watching her rise. The world was preparing to judge it, and what happened next would become one of the most challenging chapters of her entire career, because success had opened the door to fame. But fame was about to open the door to conflict, and conflict changes everything. Chapter 4: The Backlash Success. Change is everything, but not always in the way people imagine. Most people dream about becoming famous. They imagine the applause, the awards, the sold-out crowds, the admiration. What they rarely imagine is the other side. The criticism, the pressure, the expectations, the endless scrutiny. And as Taylor Swift's star continued to rise, she was about to discover that fame comes with a price, a very expensive price. By now, the young songwriter from Pennsylvania was no longer an unknown artist. She had become a recognizable figure. Her songs were climbing charts, her audience was growing. Rapidly, her influence was expanding. The dream that once seemed impossible was becoming reality. But reality brought new challenges, because the higher someone climbs, the more visible they become, and visibility attracts attention, not all of it good. At first, the criticism was manageable. A comment here, an article there. The usual skepticism reserved for rising stars. Many assumed her success would be temporary. Passing trend, a brief moment in the spotlight. The music industry had seen countless young stars come and go. Why should this one be different? Yet the success continued, and with every new achievement, the criticism intensified. Something strange happens when people become successful. The more successful they become, the more people feel compelled to explain why they don't deserve it. Some claimed she was lucky, others claimed she was overrated, others insisted her success was manufactured. The narrative kept changing, but the criticism never disappeared, and then came a new challenge, one far more difficult than industry competition: public controversy. For the first time, Taylor wasn't simply being evaluated as an artist. She was being evaluated as a public figure. Every appearance mattered, every interview mattered, every statement mattered. The spotlight was no longer focused on her music alone. It was focused on her life, and that changes the game completely. The audience wasn't just listening anymore. They were watching closely, analyzing everything, looking for mistakes, looking for flaws, looking for reasons to either celebrate her or tear her down. The internet amplified everything. Small moment could become a global discussion. A misunderstanding could become a headline. A disagreement could become a controversy, and controversies spread faster than success, much faster. As the years progressed, the pressure became relentless. News outlets followed every move. Commentators offered opinions, strangers debated her character, supporters defended her, critics attacked her. The conversation seemed endless. For many artists, this is the moment when things begin falling. The pressure becomes overwhelming. The criticism becomes exhausting. The spotlight becomes unbearable. History is filled with talented people who reached this stage and never recovered. Their confidence shattered. Their careers stalled. Their momentum vanished. The public moved on. Taylor faced the same risk, perhaps an even greater one, because the bigger the celebrity, the bigger the target. And by now, she had become one of the most discussed names in entertainment. Then, came moments that seemed capable of changing everything. Moments that dominated headlines, moments that fueled debates, moments that made people wonder whether her rise had reached its limit. Some believed her popularity would decline, others believed the public would lose interest, others predicted her best years were already behind her. It wasn't the first time people had doubted her, but now the doubts were louder than ever. This was no longer about music. This was about survival. Could she adapt? Could she recover? Could she reinvent herself once again? Because one of the harsh realities of modern fame is this: success gets you noticed, but adaptation keeps you relevant. And relevance is difficult to maintain, especially in an industry that constantly moves on to the next thing, the next trend, the next star, the next sensation. Many artists spend years reaching the top, only to discover that staying there is even harder. Taylor now stood at that crossroads. The pressure was immense, the expectations impossible, and the criticism relentless. The easy option would have been retreat, play it safe, avoid risks, protect what had already been achieved. But throughout her career, Taylor Swift had rarely chosen the easy option. Instead, she chose something far more dangerous: reinvention, a decision that would either save her career or destroy it. Because what happened next wasn't simply a comeback, it was a transformation, of the most remarkable reinventions in modern entertainment history. And it would change the trajectory of her career forever. The critics thought they understood the story. The public thought they knew what would happen next, but they were about to discover something important. They had underestimated her again. Chapter 5: The Reinvention Machine. Most careers end long before people notice. Not with a dramatic collapse, not with a scandal, not with a headline. They simply fade. One day the world is talking about you. The next day it is talking about someone else. The entertainment industry is a graveyard of former stars, artists who once dominated charts, celebrities who once filled arenas, names that once seemed impossible to ignore. Then suddenly, they were forgotten. The question wasn't whether Taylor Swift could become successful. She already had. The question was far more dangerous. Could she stay successful? Because history suggested she couldn't. Very few people do. The rules of fame are brutal. Audiences evolve, trends change, tastes shift. The very thing that makes someone famous today can make them irrelevant tomorrow. And by this point in her career, something unusual was happening. Taylor Swift wasn't fighting one battle. She was fighting several at the same time. The critics wanted her to fail. The media wanted a story. The industry wanted the next star. And the audience wanted something new, always something new. For many artists, this would have been the beginning of the end, but hidden beneath the public image was a quality few fully understood. Taylor Swift was not simply an artist, she was a student of audiences, a student of storytelling, a student of change. While others focused on protecting what they had built, she was studying what came next. And that made all the difference, because she noticed something many successful people never realize. The thing that gets you to the top is rarely the thing that keeps you there. The world changes. You either change with it or you become a memory. The safest move would have been to remain exactly the same. Keep making the same music. Keep repeating the same formula. Keep delivering what people expected. And for a while, that strategy might have worked. But only for a while. Eventually, audiences become familiar. Then comfortable. Then bored. Taylor appeared to understand this before many others did. Instead of protecting her image, she challenged it. Instead of staying inside one lane, she expanded it. Instead of becoming predictable, she became impossible to predict. And unpredictability is Powerful, because audiences love surprises. The transformation wasn't instant, it wasn't effortless, and it certainly wasn't risk-free. Every major change carried consequences. Every creative shift carried uncertainty. Every new direction carried critics waiting to say, "We told you so." Imagine the pressure, millions watching millions, judging millions ready to compare. Every new chapter to the old one. One wrong move could damage everything. Failed transition could stall a career. One major mistake could become permanent. The stakes were enormous, yet time after time, she moved anyway. Not recklessly, strategically, like a chess player thinking several moves ahead. This is where the story becomes fascinating, because most people think reinvention happens when someone changes, but the real secret is understanding what should never change. Taylor changed sounds. She changed styles. She changed eras. But underneath those changes, one thing remained untouched. The storytelling, the emotional connection, the relationship with her audience, the foundation stayed the same. Only the presentation evolved. And that may have been the genius. People weren't attached to a hairstyle or a genre or an image. They were attached to the feeling that the stories were real, the feeling that they were part of the journey, the feeling that they were growing alongside the artist. That connection became stronger with every transformation, not weaker. And soon, something remarkable began happening. The very changes people feared would hurt her career started expanding it. New audiences arrived. New listeners appeared. New opportunities emerged. The audience wasn't shrinking. It was growing. The reach wasn't narrowing. It was expanding. What looked risky from the outside was becoming one of the smartest moves of her career. But the biggest surprise was still ahead, because while the public focused on music, Taylor was quietly learning something far more valuable. Power, not celebrity power, business power, ownership, control, leverage, influence, the kinds of things most artists don't think about until it's too late. And while millions debated songs and headlines, a much bigger story was unfolding behind the scenes, a story involving contracts, rights, ownership, and one of the boldest business decisions in modern entertainment history. The next battle wouldn't be fought on a stage, it wouldn't be fought in interviews, it wouldn't be fought through headlines. It would be fought over something far more valuable: control of the empire itself. And when that battle arrived, the music industry would discover that Taylor Swift wasn't just playing the game. She was learning how to change it. Chapter 6. The empire strikes back. Every empire faces a test, a moment when success alone is no longer enough, a moment when survival depends on something deeper. For Taylor Swift, that moment arrived not on a stage, not during a concert, not in front of a camera. It arrived behind closed doors, in boardrooms, contracts, legal documents, and decisions that would determine who truly controlled the empire she had spent years building. To understand the battle, we need to understand a simple truth about the music industry. Most fans think artists own their music. Often they don't. Many artists spend years creating songs, writing lyrics, recording albums, building careers, only to discover that the most valuable pieces of their work belong to someone else. The public sees fame. The industry sees assets. And in the music business, few assets are more valuable than ownership. For years, Taylor's career had continued growing, album after album, tour after tour, achievement after achievement. She had become one of the most powerful names in entertainment. Yet despite all that success, a question lingered beneath the surface. Who really controlled the legacy she was creating? At first, it wasn't a question most fans were asking. Why would they? The music was successful. The tours were successful. Everything appeared to be working, but appearances can be deceptive, and some of the biggest battles happen where audiences cannot see them. Then the story exploded into public view. Suddenly, conversations about ownership began appearing everywhere. Fans discussed it, journalists analyzed it, industry insiders debated it. What had once been a private business matter became one of the biggest stories in entertainment, and at the center of it all stood Taylor Swift. The stakes were enormous. This wasn't simply about money. It wasn't simply about contracts. It was about control. Control over years of work, years of creativity, years of sacrifice, years of memories attached to songs that millions of people had made part of their lives. For many artists, this would have been the end of the conversation. Frustrating, absolutely unfair, perhaps, but unavoidable. That is often how the industry works. The rules are established long before most artists arrive, and very few possess the power to challenge them. But once again, Taylor Swift did something unexpected. Instead of accepting the situation, she made a move so bold that it stunned the industry, a move that transformed a business dispute into a masterclass in strategy, a move that nobody could ignore. She decided to re-record her music. Think about that for a moment. Not one song, not two songs, entire bodies of work. Albums that had already become part of music history. Albums people already knew, already loved, already owned. To many observers, the idea seemed impossible. Why revisit work that had already succeeded? Why undertake such a massive challenge? Why risk so much? The answer revealed something important about how Taylor approached problems. She didn't always fight battles the way people expected. Sometimes she changed the battlefield entirely. The music industry watched carefully. Artists watched carefully. Executives watched carefully. Because if the strategy worked, it could change more than one career. It could change the conversation itself. Then something remarkable happened. Fans responded, not casually, not passively. They embraced the project, supported it, celebrated it. The re-recordings became more than music releases. They became events, moments, statements. Proof that the relationship Taylor had built with her audience over the years was stronger than many people realized. This wasn't merely customer loyalty. It was trust. The same trust she had been building since the earliest days of her career. The same trust that had carried her through criticism, through controversy, through reinvention. Now that trust was being tested on a larger stage than ever before, and it held. The results sent shockwaves through the industry. What many thought was impossible suddenly looked achievable. What many thought was risky suddenly looked brilliant, and what appeared to be a setback was transformed into an opportunity. The empire had not weakened. It had grown stronger. But perhaps the most fascinating part of the story wasn't the business victory itself. It was what the victory revealed. Taylor Swift was no longer simply one of the world's biggest artists. She had become something else. A force, a case study, a blueprint. Someone capable of influencing not only audiences, but conversations throughout an entire industry. And that level of influence is rare, extremely rare. Most stars are famous. Very few change the rules. Yet the story was still evolving, because while ownership battles captured headlines, another phenomenon was quietly building momentum. A phenomenon so massive that even seasoned industry veterans struggled to explain it. Ticket sales exploded, cities transformed. Economies felt the impact, fans crossed continents, and a tour began generating headlines that sounded almost unbelievable. The question was no longer whether Taylor Swift was successful. The question was whether anyone had ever built something quite like this before. The next chapter would investigate the phenomenon that pushed her influence beyond music itself, a phenomenon that turned concerts into cultural events, fans into communities, and an artist into a global movement. The era of success was over. The era of domination had begun. Chapter 7. The era that changed everything. Every empire has a moment when success becomes something larger, a moment when influence becomes power, a moment when the world realizes it is witnessing history. For Taylor Swift, that moment arrived during an era that nobody fully understood. At first, because from a distance, it looked like a concert tour, a very successful concert tour, but still a concert tour. The music industry had seen successful tours before, sold-out arenas, massive crowds, record-breaking revenues. None of that was new. What was new was the scale, the intensity, the obsession, the phenomenon. Something unusual was happening, and it wasn't limited to music. Cities began noticing, businesses began noticing, economists began noticing, even people who never listened to Taylor Swift began noticing. The question wasn't simply why people wanted tickets. The question was why they wanted them so badly. Why? Were fans traveling hundreds of miles? Thousands of miles? Why were people crossing countries? Crossing oceans? Why were entire weekends being planned around a single event? Why did the experience seem to matter so much? The deeper investigators looked, the more fascinating the story became, because the concerts were only part of it. The real story was what happened around them. Hotels filled, restaurants filled, airports filled, entire local economies experienced noticeable surges. News organizations began covering something they rarely covered. Concert economics said the phenomenon was becoming impossible to ignore, and yet numbers alone couldn't explain it, because numbers don't create devotion, numbers don't create emotional investment, numbers don't create communities. People do, and somehow over the years, Taylor Swift had built one of the most powerful communities in modern entertainment. Not an audience, a community. There is a difference. Audiences watch, communities participate. Audiences consume, communities belong. And belonging is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. People want to be part of something. They want shared experiences, shared memories, shared stories. The concerts became exactly that. For many fans, attending wasn't simply about hearing songs, it was about being present, being part of a moment, being part of a story larger than themselves. And stories are powerful. Taylor understood that better than most. She always had, long before the stadiums, long before the headlines, long before the empire. The storyteller had never disappeared. The stage had simply become larger, much larger by now. Each performance felt less like a concert and more like an event. Months of anticipation, online discussions, fan theories, predictions, preparations. People weren't merely attending, they were preparing, almost like participants in a cultural ritual. And every event generated more momentum, more excitement, more attention. The machine fed itself. The bigger it became, the bigger it grew. The momentum became nearly impossible to stop. Industry experts struggled to find comparisons because there weren't many. History had seen famous artists. History had seen successful tours, but this felt different. The scale was approaching something rare, something difficult to manufacture, something impossible to fake. Cultural impact, real cultural impact, the kind that extends beyond entertainment, the kind that enters conversations, headlines, business. Reports start economic discussions, political discussions, the kind that becomes part of a moment in history. And perhaps most surprisingly, this influence wasn't built overnight. It was built slowly, patiently, year after year, album after album, story after story, relationship after relationship. What looked sudden was actually the result of decades, a truth many people missed. The world often notices success at its peak. It rarely notices the years spent building it, yet every stadium, every headline, every record, every achievement could be traced back to something much smaller. A young girl writing stories in a notebook. The connection was direct. The scale had changed. The principle had not connection. That remained the foundation always, and while millions focused on ticket sales and records, another question was quietly emerging. A bigger question, a more important question. Had Taylor Swift become more than an entertainer? Had she become something else entirely? A cultural institution, a symbol, a case study in influence, because influence is different from fame. Fame attracts attention. Influence shapes behavior, shapes conversations, shapes industries. And increasingly, Taylor Swift appeared capable of doing exactly that. The evidence was everywhere. The music industry adjusted, brands adjusted, media organizations adjusted, competitors adjusted. People were reacting not just to a person, but to a force, and forces leave legacies. Which brings us to the final mystery. The biggest mystery of all. What is the actual formula? What transformed a teenager with a dream into one of the most influential figures in modern entertainment? Was it talent, timing, strategy, luck, relentless work, or something deeper? Because when investigators step back and examine the entire story, a pattern begins to emerge, a pattern hidden in plain sight, and understanding that pattern may explain everything. The rise, the survival, the reinventions, the empire, the phenomenon. The next chapter will attempt to answer the question, at the heart of this entire investigation, how exactly did Taylor Swift do it? And can anyone ever repeat it? Chapter 8. The formula. Every great mystery eventually leads to one question. How did it happen? How did a teenager with a guitar become one of the most influential entertainers on the planet? How did she survive an industry where most careers last only a fraction as long? How did she continue growing while others faded? How did she turn success into an empire? By now we've examined the story. The risks, the setbacks, the controversies, the reinventions, the victories. But to truly understand Taylor Swift, we have to step back and look at the entire board, like detectives examining a case, searching for patterns, looking for clues, trying to identify the formula hidden beneath the headlines. Because there was a formula, not a secret shortcut, not a magic trick, a system. And the first piece of that system was surprisingly simple: storytelling. Most artists release songs. Taylor Swift built narratives. There is a difference. Songs can become popular. Stories become memorable. People don't simply remember melodies. They remember moments, characters, emotions, experiences. And from the beginning, Taylor understood how to transform ordinary experiences into compelling narratives. A heartbreak wasn't just a heartbreak. It became a story. A friendship wasn't just a friendship, it became a story. A life event wasn't just an event, it became a story. And stories travel farther than information, always have, always will. But storytelling alone doesn't explain the phenomenon. Thousands of talented storytellers exist. Most never build empires, which brings us to the second piece of the formula: connection, real connection. Not manufactured connection, not corporate connection, human connection. Taylor rarely positioned herself above her audience. Instead, she positioned herself among them. The effect was powerful. Fans didn't feel like spectators. They felt included, seen, recognized, part of the journey. And when people feel personally connected to a story, they become invested in its outcome. That investment became one of the strongest foundations of her career. Yet even that wasn't enough to explain everything. The third piece of the formula was adaptability. History rewards adaptation. The companies that survive adapt. The leaders who survive adapt. The artists who survive adapt. And throughout her career, Taylor demonstrated a willingness to evolve, not because change is fashionable, because stagnation is dangerous. Many successful people become trapped by their own success. They repeat what worked yesterday, over and over, until the audience moves on. Taylor appeared to understand that risk, so she changed, repeatedly, not recklessly, strategically, like a business adjusting to a changing market, like an athlete adjusting to new competition, like a survivor adapting to new conditions. The result was longevity, and longevity is rare, extremely rare. Then there was another piece, one often overlooked: consistency. Success attracts attention. Consistency earns trust. Anyone can have one great year, one great song, one great project. The challenge is repeating excellence again and again and again for years, across changing trends, across changing audiences, across changing industries. Consistency may not be exciting, but it is powerful, and powerful things often appear ordinary until enough time passes. Then people realize what they were witnessing. The next piece of the formula was perhaps the most underestimated: work, relentless work. The public often sees outcomes, rarely the process. The spotlight, not the preparation. The success, not the sacrifice. But behind every visible achievement exists an invisible mountain of effort. Writing, planning, practicing, creating, revising, improving, repeating. The glamorous version of success sells better. The truthful version explains more, and the truthful version almost always involves extraordinary effort. Then came another factor: timing. Not because timing creates greatness, but because greatness often requires opportunity. The world was changing, technology was changing, media was changing, music was changing, and somehow Taylor repeatedly positioned herself where preparation met opportunity. That intersection matters a lot, because opportunity without preparation is wasted. Preparation without opportunity is invisible. The magic happens when they meet, but perhaps the most fascinating part of the formula wasn't any individual component. It was the combination: storytelling, connection, adaptability, consistency, work, timing, each important on its own. Together, something much more powerful. A system, an ecosystem, an engine capable of sustaining momentum over long periods of time, and that may explain why so many people struggle to copy her success. Because most people imitate the visible parts: the music, the image, the fame, the surface. Few imitate the underlying structure, the habits, the discipline, the patience, the long-term thinking, the willingness to evolve. Those things are harder to copy. Far harder, which leads us to the final question: could someone else do it? Could another artist replicate the formula? Perhaps. Parts of it, certainly. But history suggests something important. Great empires are rarely duplicated exactly. The conditions change. The world changes. The audience changes. And the individuals themselves are unique. The next Taylor Swift will probably not succeed by becoming Taylor Swift. They will succeed by becoming themselves, just as she did. Which means this investigation ultimately reveals something larger than one career. Success leaves clues, patterns, principles, lessons, but every generation must apply them differently. The formula exists, yet it refuses to become a shortcut. And maybe that's exactly why it works. Because while millions dream of success, very few are willing to build it. Piece by piece, year after year, story after story, until one day the world looks up and says, "How did that happen?" The answer is never one moment. It is thousands of moments, hidden from view, working together. For longer than most people are willing to wait. And that brings us to the final chapter of our investigation. Not the rise, not the empire, not the formula, the legacy. Because the most important question is no longer how Taylor Swift became successful. The most important question is this: when the music stops, what will history remember? Chapter 9. Legacy. The woman who changed the game. Every investigation eventually reaches the same destination. The end. The evidence has been gathered. The story has been told. The clues have been examined. And only one question remains. What does it all mean? Because history is filled with famous people. History is filled with successful people. History is filled with wealthy people. Yet only a small number leave a permanent mark that remains long after the headlines disappear, long after the records are broken, long after the spotlight moves elsewhere. That is where legacy begins, and that is where our investigation ends. When most people think about Taylor Swift, they think about music, the songs, the albums, the performances, the tours, and understandably so. Those achievements are extraordinary, but legacies are rarely built on achievements alone. They are built on impact, the changes that remain after someone arrives. And perhaps the most fascinating discovery in this entire investigation is that Taylor's impact extends far beyond music. She didn't simply succeed inside the system. In many ways, she challenged it. She helped reshape conversations about artist ownership, conversations that many people inside the industry had been having privately for years. Suddenly, those conversations became public. Artists paid attention, executives paid attention, fans paid attention. The relationship between creators and their work became part of the global discussion that matters, because industries rarely change themselves. Someone usually forces the conversation, and conversations have consequences. But ownership was only part of the story. There was also the audience, the community, the culture. Long before many companies fully understood the power of direct audience connection, Taylor Swift appeared to recognize its value. She treated supporters as participants, not spectators. That distinction changed everything. Over time, one of the most loyal communities in entertainment emerged, not because loyalty was demanded, because it was cultivated patiently, consistently. Year after year, the relationship became part of the brand, and brands built on relationships tend to survive longer than brands built solely on products. Then there was storytelling, perhaps her greatest contribution of all, not because she invented storytelling. Humans have been telling stories for thousands of years, but because she demonstrated its power in a modern age, an age of short attention spans, endless distractions, constant noise. Yet despite all of that, stories still won, stories still connected, stories still mattered. The lesson reached far beyond music. Businesses learned it. Creators learned it. Entrepreneurs learned it. Audiences proved once again that facts inform, stories inspire, and inspiration changes behavior. The influence spread quietly at first, then everywhere. But perhaps the most remarkable part of the story is how unlikely it all seemed in the beginning. Go back to chapter 1, back to the teenager with a notebook, back to the uncertainty. Back to the gamble. If someone had predicted the future back then, few would have believed it. A global icon? A cultural force? A business case study? An entertainment empire? It would have sounded absurd, and yet history is full of outcomes that once sounded absurd. That is why underestimating people can be dangerous, especially people who are willing to keep working when nobody is watching. Because that is where most extraordinary stories begin, not with applause, not with headlines, not with recognition, with effort, quiet effort. Repeated effort, persistent effort, the kind most people never see, and perhaps that is the real lesson hidden inside this investigation. Not how to become Taylor Swift. That path belongs to one person. The lesson is something broader, something more universal. Success is rarely one decision, rarely one opportunity, rarely one lucky break. It is usually the accumulation of countless choices, countless risks, countless sacrifices stacked on top of each other for years until eventually the world notices what was being built all along. And when the world finally notices, it often calls it overnight success. History calls it something else. Preparation meeting opportunity. As we close this case, another reality becomes impossible to ignore. The story is not over, not yet. Legacies are unusual because they continue evolving. New chapters appear, new achievements emerge. New challenges arrive. The final verdict belongs to history, and history takes its time. But one thing already seems clear, Taylor Swift became more than a successful artist, more than a celebrity, more than a business success story. She became a symbol of what can happen when storytelling, persistence, adaptation, and vision operate together over a very long period of time. The teenager who once dreamed of being heard eventually captured the attention of the world, not through a single moment, but through thousands of moments. One story at a time, one song at a time, one decision at a time. And perhaps that is why her journey continues to fascinate millions, because beneath the fame, beneath the headlines, beneath the empire, there is a story people recognize, a story about ambition, a story about resilience, a story about reinvention, a story about refusing to disappear. The investigation is complete. Evidence is on the table. The verdict belongs to you. Was this simply the rise of a music star? Or was it the construction of one of the most remarkable entertainment empires of the modern era? Either way, the girl nobody expected changed the game, and history noticed. If you enjoyed this investigation, subscribe to Icon Files for more deep dives into the people, empires, mysteries, and stories that shaped our world. Because every icon leaves clues, and we're just getting started.